Okay, today we're going to talk about how United States is a crown colony. Yes, it is. and so let's get going. Um, this is a Congressional Record taken from August 19th, 1940. Um, and this is a little bit closer up view. I'm not going to stick on this stuff too much because I've got the text of it. In some other slides further. And so if you want to see the want to send me an email and I'll send you a PDF file of this thing and then you can study it all you want. This is the next page, and the highlighted portion is the part that we're going to go through. And this is a closer view. And again, if you want to see that and study it, you're welcome to send me a PDF or send me an email and I'll send you a PDF file. Or I'll send you the actual documents I got it from, too. Anyways, it says that, Mr. Speaker, the information contained in this booklet is important at this time, particularly in view of the fact that pro-English groups in the United States are now working in close cooperation with world internationalist organizations. Gee, that sounds like the UN, although this is in 1940, and so that's 5 years before the UN was created, I guess you might say. Before 1917, foreign influence came mainly from Anglo-American groups. That sounds like English-American groups in England, okay? And since the World War, these groups have been fortified by international financiers. Gee, that sounds like the Bankster Thieves and the internationalists or the so-called minority group. The pressure is therefore more than double for combined. These groups control all avenues of communication. Gee, that sounds like the news media. And are now using them to further their plan of British domination to establish a world federation of states. Gee, that sounds like the United Nations. British domination. Let me call your attention to the fact that on the reverse of the Great Seal of the United States, which appears on our dollar bills, you will find the exact symbol of the British Israel World Federation movement. This symbol is also carried on literature of other organizations promoting a world government and a world religion. At the bottom of the circle surrounding the pyramid, you will find the wording Novus Ordo Seclorum. It was this new order that was advocated by Clinton Roosevelt several hundred years ago, recently in Philip Drew, and now followed by the executive. Gee, that sounds like the President of the United States, people. And this is the dollar bill. And this is what I'm guessing that they're talking about. And if you look at the bottom underneath the pyramid is that Novus Ordo Seclorum. So that's the symbol of the British Israel, British Israel World Federation movement. Okay, so this is not something new. This has been going on for hundreds of years. Do you not think, as good American people, that the administration has gone far from constitutional government when there is inscribed a symbol on the reverse of our Great Seal that advocates a new order? Yes, an order which means the destruction of our republic as formulated in the Constitution of the United States. It may also interest you to know that this contemplated union now, as advocated by Clarence Street, will be under the control of Great Britain and as a movement to return the United States as a colony in the British Empire. Should we become a part of this union, our traditional rights and liberties will be lost, and we will be no greater status than an English possession. This was the dream of Cecil Rhodes and Andrew Carnegie when the latter wrote his book Triumphant Democracy in 1893. Steps toward a British Union, a world state, and international internal strife, Part 4. And this is, this is taken from Congressional Record, Monday, August 19th, 1940. And we all know that 4 years later, the UN was created and the U.S. was one of the first nations to get on board with that, as well as Canada. And look at this. This is when the bitch, no disrespect to dogs intended, visited the White House when George Bush Jr., one of her uh, um, hired thugs, was in the White House. And notice that his left hand there, he's doing a satanic symbol there with his left hand. That's interesting. That's the first time I noticed that. Anyways, that's Queen Elizabeth, the bitch. No disrespect to dogs intended, and her husband, Prince Philip. Okay, he's the one that calls people like me and you useless eaters, and he'd like to come back as a virus to kill a bunch of us off. Yes, sir. That's right. These are the kinds of people we're dealing with. The one on the left is Prince Philip, calls people like me and you, useless eaters, wants to come back as a virus to eliminate a bunch of us. And they're drinking a toast. It looks like a bunch of people are toasting something in the White House, probably at some state dinner. Notice she's wearing her crown. Okay, when she visited Canada last time, she wore a red hat. And there's a picture of her in Canada with one of her RCMP pigs behind her. And in the U.S. Declaration of Independence, it talks about he has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Gee, that sounds like color of law. That sounds like what's going on today. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Gee, that sounds like what's going on today with all these kangaroo courts you see all over the place. Uh, um, U.S. Declaration of Independence, some more stuff, for abolishing the free system of English law in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Well, gee, that sounds like a tyrant. That sounds like a military dictatorship, people. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war on us. Well, gee, that sounds like the Trading with the Enemy Act. That sounds like what's going on today with the so-called fictitious war on terror. We're protecting them by a mock trial. That sounds like a kangaroo court. It sounds like what's going on today. You got to understand that the Declaration of Independence is basically a list of grievances. And these are all some of the grievances that are listed in there that I went through and found that apply today. This is the same stuff that's going on today. Anyways, let's keep going here. Statutes. This is taken from the Causes and Necessity for Taking Up Arms in 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. Okay, so that's what they're talking about there is martial law, and that's exactly what's going on today. Watch my martial law video. I've got a video as we were under martial law rule. And how did it happen? It happened through the bankruptcy, people. This is the United States Congressional Record, March 17th, 1993. And it says it's an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9th, 1933, declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent. Congress in session, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. Okay, and notice March 9th, 1933. This is U.S. Senate Report 93-549, dated November 19th, 1973. Quote, since March 9th, 1933, gee, that sounds like when they went into bankruptcy, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Okay, so that's under the powers delegated by these statutes. The president may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens, A majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule, martial law, people. For 40 years, freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have in varying degrees been abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. And that's exactly what's going on, people. It's martial law. It has been since 1933 at least, and possibly since the Civil War. But you got to understand that this martial law is national, okay? It's national emergency, and so then we're not talking about Texas, we're talking about District of Columbia. It really technically only applies to the District of Columbia, territories like Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, etc., and to U.S. citizens everywhere, okay? And so if you're one of their D.C. citizens, no matter where you're at, there are Supreme Court cases that say that the borders of D.C. expand as required for D.C. citizens everywhere. So, and in my other videos, I've shown that Texas is a department, Texas Department of Transportation is a subsidiary of the U.S. Department of Transportation and applies to U.S. citizens and resident aliens only. It's the same for the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, the Texas Business and Commerce Code, the Texas Tax Code, the Texas Government Code, Texas Transportation Code, the Texas Finance Code, and there's other ones. So the point being is that they've imposed martial law. They've created a territory in Texas. Okay, so there's a state of Texas and there's a territory in Texas, and the territory. But again, it's only if U.S. citizens that are in Texas, then the martial law applies. If you're not a U.S. citizen or a resident alien, and you can be, the courts have been very explicit that you can be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. State citizenship has existed from the beginning. It's actually found in Article 4 of the Constitution. There are two classes of citizens, at least two. Actually, there's debate about many more, too. This is taken from Gold Reserve Act of 1934. As used in this act, the term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency, which is legal tender in the United States, includes United States notes, Federal Reserve notes. So what they're saying here, what I am saying here, is that Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. All acts and parts of acts inconsistent with any provision of this act are hereby repealed. The United States has not had a treasury since 1921. Look it up, people. 41 Stat, Chapter 214. Look it up. The United States Department of the Treasury is now the International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund is a subsidiary of the World Bank. The Department of Homeland Security and all its subsidiaries is a subsidiary of the Secret Service. The Secret Service is a subsidiary of the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department is a subsidiary of the IMF. The IRS is an agency of the IMF. And there, look it up. Do a search on the internet. You can find that stuff. I find it all the time. The United Nations, through the International Monetary Fund, issues Social Security numbers. The Department of the Treasury issues the SS5, not the Social Security Administration. Well, gee, that's the UN, people. The new SS5 forms do not state who or what publishes them. The early SS5 forms state they were Department of Treasury forms, which is the IMF, people. The all Social Security checks come directly from the IMF and the UN, and it says it on the front of the check. Isn't it amazing how all these terror alerts start coming out when there are DHS funding bills before Congress? Isn't that amazing? It's just an amazing thing. And if we can't rape you, the terrorists win. Yeah, there's Napolitano wanting to stick her fingers up somebody's who knows what. Oh, and then the TSA choice is molestation or radiation. Either way, we get to grope you. Love the TSA, the Body Cavity Explorer Corps. We're here for you. Think of us as your physician. Your health and safety is our concern. TSA cavity searchers coming sooner than you think, because profiling would offend the terrorists. We can't offend the terrorists, can we? So, anyways, crown pigs, the British United Nations. The Queen of England, Elizabeth the Bitch, no disrespect to dogs intended, and her predecessors have been conspiring to reimpose their military dictatorship on America again. Think about it, people. That's exactly what happened. Some people say the queen is just a figurehead. It is true that there are two crowns. The queen's crown has ER superimposed over it, so there's actually crown is a corporation, and the queen's crown is just a different corporation. But when they assault you in their satanic kangaroo so-called court, it's always in the bitch's name, and so she's involved. And no disrespect to dogs intended. Fraud is an intentional perversion of truth for the purpose of inducing another in reliance upon it to part with some valuable thing belonging to him or to surrender a legal right. That's taken from Black's Law Dictionary. When one conveys a false impression by disclosure of some fact and the concealment of others, such concealment is in effect a false representation that what is disclosed is the whole truth. Fraud and deceit may arise from silence where there's a duty to speak, as well as from speaking an untruth. So fraud equals lies, okay? You're the father of the devil. The lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And that's taken from the Bible. And so these Satanists, these people are Satanists, is what they are. I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews or Christians and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And that's Revelations 2 and 9. But the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers, which is pharmaceutical drug pushers, and the idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And so this is there's a couple things that I want to point out here. All liars, but those people who are afraid of these Satanists and because of that don't want to do anything to assert their rights, to protect themselves. Well, I think that they're not going to do too well either. Okay, so you have to be stand up for yourself, and you have to not be fearful, and the unbelieving. Those are going to get it too. And so, Mark Passio says that 2/3 of Americans are practicing Satanists, and I think it's more like about 90% actually. This is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, who was held by the courts of equity then under the direction of the clergy, while they're still under the direction of the clergy, to be bound in, because it's under the direction of the Vatican, to be bound in conscience to account for his sesticate use for the rents and emoluments of the estate, and it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. Okay, so think about it. This is in 1835, and this is under the definition of Mort Main, by the way. But anyways, they're talking about land conveyancing, okay? And this the use of use and trusts is the foundation of modern conveyancing in 1835. Okay, so that's what they record. This is the fraud that's going on. Okay, when you record your land, the counter recorder just converts it to a sesticate trust. That's what they do. That's exactly what they do. And but you don't have to do it under the sesticate trust. So they just automatically do it unless you tell them otherwise, is what it is. And matter of fact, you probably have to sue them or something. But so this idea of this sesticate trust is not new. Okay, this is as old as it's hundreds of years old, maybe thousands. Courts of equity are now satanic, but it's still the clergy that runs it. It's the Vatican. They're using sesticate trust to transfer land in 1835, just like they are today. It was under a feudal system, just like it is today. In the case, the tenants set up crosses upon their land, and that's the badges of Knights Templars and Hospitallers, okay, in order to protect them from the feudal demands of their lord by virtue of the privileges of those religious and military orders, okay? Well, see, this is, again, that's the same stuff under the definition of Mort Main in Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835, okay? They set up crosses on their land so they could protect themselves from the feudal demands of their lords. Okay, and in England it's the lords, and here it's the corporate counties is what it is. Really, is what who the lords are in America, and and they demand their extortion is what they demand. And so the uh, the crosses are symbols of the Templars, okay, and the religious and military orders. Okay, that's what the cross is, a symbol of, a religious and military orders, and the Templars and the Hospitallers. That's all religion. Okay, that's all Satanism, is what it is. A cross is a Masonic Illuminati symbol where they're bragging that the cross is how they killed the Son of God. They're bragging, they're showing this cross, and they say, we killed the Son of God, and that's how we did it. That's exactly what this is all about. This fraud equals lies equals Satanism. See, and there you have one of these churches that have 501c3 tax exempt status, and they put this cross up there. So this is a Baal priest building. This is a Baal temple. A temple of Baal is what this is. This is a temple of Baal. And here's another temple of Baal. And here's another temple of Baal. And here's another temple of Baal. Another temple of Baal. And another one. They call themselves the New Life Christian Church, but that's all in all block capital letters. That's a corporation. That's another temple of Baal. And prominent Luciferian and Masonic leader Albert Pike was a Confederate general. He wrote the book called Morals and Dogma. He predicted 3 world wars. He talked about consolidating the entire planet, people, places, and things into the hands of one entity, which is sometimes referred to as the Antichrist, or the god of Freemasonry and Illuminati, Lucifer, and Satan. And that's found in Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike at page 321. Look it up, people. World War I and World War II happened exactly as predicted, and now we're building up to World War III as predicted by Albert Pike. And even the Civil War, you think about it, the Civil War was even orchestrated, in my opinion. I happened to work with a contract where I was working with some people from Northern Ireland, and they told me that there's actually 2 levels of Masons. There's the first level goes to the 33rd degree, and the second level is available only to the aristocracy, like Prince Philip. Remember we showed Prince Philip there and the bitch? Well, Prince Philip is in the Masons. That's again, the Masons are only men, although they do have their women auxiliaries called the Eastern Star. But and there's also all sorts of little spin-offs from the Masons too. Like all these clubs, like the Lions, there's a bunch of them that these so-called charitable organizations that you see, these clubs are all tied in with the Masons. There's been a Masonic influence in America from the beginning. Some say that the Vatican influence has also been here from the beginning, and that's if you look at a book called Rulers of Evil by Tupper Saucy. Okay, very good book. I read it. But he talks about how the Vatican, the Jesuits, were involved with America from the beginning. And this is a website called oneevil.org. I would recommend you go there and check it out. This is talking about the Nazi SS. Okay, and this is a closer up look. The Nazi SS, Knights of Societas Seclorum, or Knights of the Holy See. This was the founder was Archbishop Cardinal Pacelli, Superior General. Okay, so that's the Jesuit Superior General people. The first leader was Himmler. Okay, and the headquarters was in Berlin in 1945, and it moved to Washington D.C. after 1945. So it was Berlin up to 1945, and it moved to Washington D.C. after that, and now it's called the Secret Service. Why is that a surprise? So if you read the highlighted stuff down at the bottom, the Nazi SS, shortened name for Knights of the Holy See, is a Roman Catholic spiritual and military order first formed in 1933, based completely upon the Jesuit order structure, upon the signing of the Sacred Rite Concordat, okay, the Concordat of 1933 that the Vatican signed with Hitler. Specifically through the application of Articles 1, 12, 15, 21, and 33, with the enaction of Clause C of the secret supplement of the Concordat between Franz von Papen on behalf of the Nazi Germany and Cardinal Pacelli and on behalf of the Vatican. The term Nazi was first publicly used as a rebranded name in the National Socialist Workers' Party in 1933 upon devout Catholic leader known as Hitler assumed office as the German Chancellor. So the point is that this is all coming from the Vatican. Okay, Hitler signed that Concordat of 1933, but that's been adopted by Canada and the United States and a bunch of other nations too. So the Concordat of 1933 is, and that's why the SS is now in Washington D.C. and it's known as the Secret Service. The Department of Homeland Security is a subsidiary of the Secret Service. So that's the SS, people. That's the SS. This Homeland Security is the SS in America. There is a Secret Service in the United Kingdom. And why should that be a surprise? Because it's all the same company. The Secret Service is a subsidiary of the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department's owned by the International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund's owned by the World Bank. The World Bank is owned by the UN. The UN's owned by the Crown of England. Okay, the Crown of England is owned by the Vatican. And here is concessions to England, the Pope, 1213. We will establish a perpetual obligation, and concession will establish that from and after the proper special revenues of our said kingdom for all service and customs which we ought to render for them, saving in all things the penny of St. Peter, the Roman Church shall receive yearly 1,000 marks sterling, namely at the feast of St. Michael 500 marks, and at Easter 500 marks. 700 for the Kingdom of England and 300 for the Kingdom of Ireland. So this is taken from the concessions to the England to the Pope in 1213. Okay, so and then what happened is after the concessions of England to the Pope in 1213 was signed, King John had to make money to pay his tribute. Okay, and King John imposed martial law rule and started to do things to raise money to pay his tribute. It took only 2 years for the people to figure out what was happening, and the Magna Carta was the result. The Magna Carta is not a unilateral act emanating solely from the spontaneous will of the king as the charters of the predecessors of John. Neither is it a treaty, for we cannot say it was concluded between two legitimate and independent sovereignties, nor between two nations, nor is it a law. The barons do not appear in it as subjects, for they are freed from their promise of fidelity, and the king brought captive, placed before them, submitted to the conditions which the conquerors imposed upon him. Magna Carta is therefore a contract, but resembles a treaty concluded between two nations, and now one of the parties, in virtue of the law of war, can impose its will upon the other. Okay, this is a Quebec court case, and basically what they did is they stuck a sword to his throat, and they said, "Here, King, we want you to sign this," and he signed it, and so that's what happened. These Satanists. The Magna Carta is similar to a treaty after the War of Independence. The Treaty of Paris was signed. These Satanists have no intention of abiding by their treaties. These Satanists are imposing perpetual warfare, and their so-called treaties mean absolutely nothing. These people are Satanists. Under international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by non de jure because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. Okay, well, think about it, people. The War of Independence was fought over them making war. Magna Carta was fought over making war, and now they're back doing it again. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other side by a mere private person. So they're making war on you and me. That's exactly what they're doing. Capitis diminutio means the diminishing of status through the use of capitalization. In Roman law, diminishing or abridgment of personality or loss of curtailment of man's status or aggregate of legal attributes and qualifications. Capitis diminutio maxima, this is the fictitious war name, people. The highest and most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. So they're making war. They're using their fictitious war name. And here, this is the Trading with the Enemy Act, people. The president, if he shall find it compatible with the safety of the United States and the successful prosecution of the war, may And paragraph B, during the time of the war, the president may, through any agency he may designate under some rules and regulations as he may prescribe by means of instructions, licenses, or otherwise, regulate, direct, compel, mollify, void, prevent, or prohibit, or exercise any right, power, or privilege with respect to any property by any person subject to the jurisdiction of the United States upon the terms directed by the president in such agency or person, in such designated agency or person. That's the Trading with the Enemy Act, people. Okay, they are making war on you and me. That's exactly what they're doing. And here's another good example. Okay, murder, theft, rape, kidnapping, and assault, they're all wrong. But then he puts on his magic suit and he gets to do it all day long. Woohoo! Pull over. Your tail lights are out. We're going to murder you if you don't. And here is the pimp. No, the Pope. No, actually, he's the pimp. And he's kissing David Rockefeller's hand. That's exactly what he's doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about a Pope now. Pope Francis was found guilty, and this is the Vatican. Okay, this is the real owners of all of this. This is where all of this stuff is coming from. Pope Francis was found guilty of child trafficking, rape, and murder. Yesterday, defendants Pope Francis Bergoglio, Catholic Jesuit Superior General Adolfo Pachon, and Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby were found guilty of rape, torture, murder, and trafficking of children. 5 judges of the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels determined that the crimes occurred as recently as 2010. Since last March, over 48 eyewitnesses. Okay, so it's not just a couple people that have come forward and said this stuff. Come forward to testify before the International Common Law Court of Justice Court about the defendants' activities as members of the Ninth Circle Satanic Child Sacrifice Cult. The Ninth Circle Satanic Cult is said to do child sacrifices at Roman Catholic cathedrals in Montreal and New York, Rome, Scotland, London, Carnarvon Castle in Wales, an undisclosed French chateau in Holland, and at Canadian Catholic and Anglican Indian residential schools in Kamloops, British Columbia, and Brantford, Ontario. The Ninth Circle Satanic Child Sacrifice Cult is believed to use privately owned forest groves in the U.S., Canada, France, and Holland for their human hunting parties for global elites, including members of the European royals. This is taken from childabusrecovery.com. And it's found on the International Common Law Court's website, too. It says global elites, including members of the European royal families. Teens were said to be obtained by the mafia, then stripped naked, raped, and hunted down and killed. The chief prosecutor said the Catholic Church is the world's largest corporation and appears to be in collusion with the mafia, governments, police, and courts worldwide. 2 adolescent women told the International Common Law Court of Justice that Pope Francis raped them while participating in child sacrifices. 8 other eyewitnesses confirmed their allegations of being witness to rape and child sacrifices. The Ninth Circle Satanic Cult was said to take place during the springs of 2009 and 10 in rural Holland and Belgium. Pope Francis is also found to be a perpetrator in satanic child sacrifice rites while acting as an Argentine priest and bishop, according to a sealed document obtained from the Vatican archives. A second record dated December 25, 1967, called the Magisterial Privilege, is said to show that every new pope is required to participate in Ninth Circle Satanic Cult ritual sacrifices of newborn children, including drinking their blood. The documents were presented to the International Common Law Court of Justice by a prominent Vatican official and a former Vatican Curia employee. Last month, an investigator for the Irish Garda police force testified before the 5 judges and 27 jury members that marks on the bones of nearly 796 children found in an Irish Roman Catholic nun septic tank indicated that they had been ritually killed. These people are an abomination, people, and we allow this to happen, and we don't say nothing. We sit there quiet and not say a word. You know, Judgment Day's coming, and we are going to be held accountable for our allowing this to happen. and you can download the PDF or stop the video and read the rest of this. This is an absolute abomination, and these people, we need to bring these people to justice. We need to take this evil from this planet. In the 1990s, Father Malachi Martin is a Catholic monk, was on Coast to Coast AM talk radio program with Art Bell, and he said at that time that the Vatican was taken over by Lucifer in 1955. Father Malachi Martin died shortly thereafter under mysterious circumstances. Pope Francis was previously the Jesuit general and the Black Pope. Pope Francis is not now talking about a one world religion. Hey, why is that a surprise? Remember in that first Congressional Record, it says that they want to promote their one world religion. And now Pope Francis is coming out talking about it. Why is that a surprise, people? Here is the false prophet, in my opinion. They're right there. You're looking at them. This is the Pope claims you're not a Christian if you own a gun. There is the false prophet that's talked about in the book of Revelations. I am just positive that that is the false prophet right there that is talked about in the book of Revelations. The American Revolution was primarily fought over King George III's Currency Act, the refusal of King George to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of a money manipulator. Probably the prime cause of the revolution, and that's Benjamin Franklin. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. There are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One's by the sword and the other's by death. The money powers prey upon the nation in times of peace and conspire against it in times of adversity. It is more despotic than monarchy, more insolent than autocracy, more selfish than bureaucracy. Denounces its public enemies, all who question its methods or throw light upon its crimes. As a result of the war, corporations have been enthroned, an era of corruption in high places will follow, and the money powers of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until all wealth is aggregated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed. And Abraham Lincoln, that sounds pretty prophetic. There is a fool born every minute. Are you one of them? Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. And that's 1 Peter 5:8. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. There's no rest for the wicked. Why is there no peace? It's because the wicked are in control. Because they have seduced my people, saying peace, and there was no peace. And that's in Ezekiel 13:10. There will be no peace as long as these Satanists are in power. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. That's Proverbs 29:2. And this is John 1. Obama is an antichrist. I don't know if he is the antichrist, although some people are saying that he's positioning himself to be UN Secretary General. And then I think that he very well could be at the antichrist, because he would be in a position. Who is a liar, but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ. He is Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son. Okay, and so Obama is a Muslim. Okay, it's well established. And first of all, how can you tell when Obama's lying? His lips are moving, and so he is definitely a liar. That makes him a Satanist by definition. He's Muslim, and Muslims believe that they say that Christ is a great prophet, but they don't say that they don't acknowledge that he's the Son of God. And so that's what this is saying, is that if Jesus is not the Son of God, then they're Antichrist. Every spirit that confesses not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh and is not of God, and this is the spirit of the Antichrist. For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess that not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an Antichrist. And so Obama is, by definition, an Antichrist. If Satan is to be bound, it is because Satanists are everywhere. The book of Revelations is happening right now, everybody. Okay, haven't you noticed? All fraud and lies are satanic. These satanic so-called courts are full of fraud. These satanic so-called courts have replaced the law of the land, which is God's law, with their satanic law merchant, so they can get you into one of their satanic so-called contracts. All warfare is satanic. Think about it, people. Is there anything more satanic than sending a bunch of people out to a field to kill each other? Most self-proclaimed Christians are actually Satanists. See my churchianity videos. Most so-called Christian churches are actually satanic. The cross is their symbol. Remember, we talked about how the Satanists use the cross as they're bragging how they killed the Son of God. They're saying that this is how they did it. They have 501c3 tax exempt status. See my churchianity videos, right? They cannot speak the truth, but they are forced to speak half-truths and lies, and that is the definition of Satanism, people. Mark Passio, a former Satanist priest, says that 2/3 of Americans are practicing Satanists. I think it's more like about 90%. All bank loans are a fraud. Gee, that sounds like Satanism. There are no bank loans. There is no federal debt. All foreclosures by banks are a fraud. U.S. Congress is bought and paid for by the banksters. The banksters, with their bought and paid for Obama and their bought and paid for U.S. Congress, are in possession and process of setting up a blood sacrifice to their satanic gods, and they will get the American Satanists to help them. And that's exactly what's going on right now, people. We can refuse to participate. So what can we do? We can refuse to participate in their de facto system. We can use any other money system but Federal Reserve notes or Bank of Canada notes. We can use qualified endorsements and all checks and negotiable instruments for deposit, for credit on account, or in exchange for non-redeemable Federal Reserve notes at face value. So you're basically saying that you're not getting money. Or you can, some people have used this redeem for lawful money. And so another thing we can do is get our head out of our butt. The more we do to you, the less you seem to believe we're doing it. We can work with our friends and neighbors to get the UN out of America and Canada or anywhere that wants to be free. The UN is owned and operated by the Crown and their Vatican handlers. We can educate ourselves about what a common law jury is and what the law of the land is. We can demand a common law jury of our peers, not a trial by jury and not a trial with jury, okay? At common law, the jury calls the witnesses, the jury questions the witnesses, the jury determines the law and the facts of the matter, and the jury even pronounces sentence if there is one. And so the judge is there to advise the jury, and the jury can ignore anything the judge says. And it's the jury that runs the courtroom. Screw the UN. We need to eliminate that UN Satanists. This is the seal of Jefferson. This is Jefferson's seal. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. I kind of like that seal. I think if I get one made up, I think I'll get one made up just like that. I really like that. They that give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And that's exactly what's going on now, people, with this so-called war on terror. When injustice becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. That is exactly what's going on. That's what the war on terror is all about. This is a cite from William Pitt, the speech in the House of Commons on November 18th, 1783. This is not anything new, people. For it is a truth which the experience of ages has attested that the people are always most in danger when the means of injuring their rights are in the possession of those whom they entertain the least suspicion. And that's Alexander Hamilton. That's why they want to take the guns, people. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery, and that's Thomas Jefferson. Don't forget to watch my other videos that talk about a proper understanding of what is, to get a proper understanding of what is happening and how it's happening. Upcoming videos asserting sovereignty, Cosby, the judicial whore in Texas, Lowe, the judicial whore in Texas, Williams, the judicial whore in Texas, Fort Worth pegs, Kerrville pegs, Alberta sheriff pegs, national versus federal, and fake news. Those are upcoming videos. Copies of these documents can be found at my private group at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I have videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for donation. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept IOUs, Federal Reserve notes, PayPal gifts, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars, and send me an email to these email addresses here. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I hope you get something out of it, and we all need to start standing up for truth and for what's right. And the best way for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. And we'll all be held accountable on Judgment Day for our actions.